right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Ruth.
So I have the honor and pleasure of moderating this session, and I'm just so excited that I get a chance to be with you today, but also with Dr. and Mrs. Boger. For those that don't know me, I'm Ruth Lee O'Rourke. I am here at James University, formerly with Dr. Boger at University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and served in various capacities prior to my tenure at University of Maryland Eastern Shore, with Dr. Boger with NSMH and with CBA and PGA and all other different types. But I also love traditions. I love pomp and circumstance. I love traditions. And this is one tradition that I love that NENA has brought to us because it was founded, this particular lecture portion was founded by Suzanne Bagnera, our very own Donna Quandary, back in 2015 when we were in Boston, for those of you that were at that particular conference. And just so you know, that conference title was Educate, Engage, and Empower. And so to kind of come full circle to our theme of this weekend of Stronger Together, and then knowing that we're honoring Dr. Boger today in this Legacy Lecture series. So this series, just a little bit of history for those of you that might not know what Legacy Lecture is or why, or the premise behind it, the purpose, right? Because we're all objective oriented. Yes. It is to recognize the achievements of the educator and the scholar, and dapperly dressed, of our distinguished colleagues who has either since retired or is about to retire. And so this gives us an opportunity to give Dr. Boger some opportunity to do reflections on his time as an ICREAM member. For those of you that have gone to in-person conferences, and part of the speech is usually, okay, who's been here with us 15 years? Please stand up, 20 years, continue standing, 30 years, continue standing. And Dr. Boger is always in competition with, our good friend Rocco, our good friend Pat Moreo, right? Mm-hmm. And is there anyone else that's last usually? And Dr. Khan from Virginia Tech. And so when we talk about reflections, so he and I, when we were talking and prepping for the meeting, his bio. You know everything. I could stand here and read founder, first, founder, first. So we decided to do something a little different of did you know, Dr. Boger, okay? Okay, so did you know? Dr. Boger was the first African-American student at the University of South Florida. He was actually, did you know, he was on a music scholarship. Majored in psychology and minored in music and Russian language. He played in the band and he was on the basketball team.
So is he going to sing for us?
That's possible.
That's next level, a singing legacy lecture. Yeah. All right, Dr. Boger, did you know he earned his doctorate in management because he was a Sodexho USA corporate fellow, and so they paid for him to go back to earn his doctorate degree. Not even here in the U.S., he did it in Canada from the Canadian School of Management-Revans University and the International Management for Centers of Association in Buckingham, England. Okay, did you know Dr. Boger was the first African-American professor at University of South Carolina in 1984, which was then called the Center of Hospitality, Retail, and Sports Management.
The last. Probably the last.
All right, did you know Dr. Boger played semi-pro Doctoral League basketball in New York City? Okay. That's right, because you can read his bio, right? Okay, so did you know Dr. Boger not only served as one of our military officers, so thank you for serving, during the Vietnam War, but he also conducted over 20 gun military salutes of last rites. Okay, so this is probably going to really shock you. Did you know Dr. Boger is certified as a Chinese cook operative? What? I know, right?
Demo. We need the fun. The free conference. Ernie teaching Chinese cooking. We got it. Playing basketball.
All right. So I have a few more, 3 more before we actually get into this. Okay. Did you know Dr. Boger is named one of the most influential African American in the travel and tourism, stated by the Black Meeting and Tourism magazine? When I brought up pomp and circumstance, if you ever attended or saw pictures of our commencement, Dr. Boger comes with his regality, right? His head, right? His dapperly dressed, but he has this beautiful medal, you know, that adorns his from his shoulder to shoulder. Because Dr. Boger is the only African American to receive an award from UCF's President's Fellow Medallion. And you think in retirement, I'm calling Dr. Boger, I'm like, Dr. Boger, I have this to tell you about, or I saw this article, I'm gonna send it to you, and leave messages because he's so busy in retirement. Did you know he was just recently published with our colleagues back in spring of last year, and the title is The Unsung Legacy of Black Hospitality Pioneers and Educators at HBCUs.
Thank you.
All right, without further ado, I'd love to be able to start our portion of the actual legacy lecture. We broke it down into kind of 3 areas, and so the 3rd area, with time permitting, allows you to ask Dr. Boger questions, kind of that ask me anything. If you're a Redditor, ask me anything. So think of your question to ask Dr. Boger, but the first portion is he's gonna go over his historic, kind of his time and reflections. We broke it into 3 different categories of his personal histories with ICRE, conference highlights, and memorable people along the way. The second portion is lessons learned. He has some really good one in there that I think we all can take with us, especially if you're in leadership positions. Faculty success profile, that's not just because I was one of his faculty members, because he has other very much noted faculty that served under him. And then examine your own personalization, and then we'll open it up for Ask Me Anything. All right, you ready, Dr. Boger?
I'm ready.
Ready, Mrs. Boger?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I appreciate that. Really appreciate the comments there. And I guess the first thing with respect to legacy probably is prayer, because over the past 50 years, I think more than anything else, that's been the overarching factor that's kept me moving forward. And daily, I usually say a prayer for all of those who've been in my classroom and all of those who've come under the sound of my voice, as well as those who may have read some of my stuff. So that includes everybody here. And every day I kind of, put a blessing up there for the well-being of all those individuals. So, that's kind of number one, it really is. And then I guess, secondly, in a sense, my wife is here and she's checked to make sure I have my pants on this morning, because this is my first live appearance in about a year and a half. So I want to be sure I'm okay. I mean, you know how we do that, the Zoom thing. So I think I'm good on that. Of course, it takes a full professor or whatever you call us, 15 minutes to kind of draw breath, so I've got 75 minutes, so that should be enough to do whatever we need to do here. Somewhere along the line of my speech teacher, somebody said, for things like this, you should stand up so they can see you. You should speak loudly so they can hear you. But you should be brief so they'll love you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this morning, it's all about love. That's all the singing I'm going to do. Okay. As Ruth mentioned, let me say thank you to the NENA group, everyone that made this happen, that invited me here. I have a prayer going for Kirsten, who really was the active person and communicated with me and handling a lot of the logistics, and trust all will be well with her and her family. And certainly want to thank everyone else who participated in getting me here and giving me the opportunity to share with you. And this is really something that I really want to do. Telling my wife, I've got 50 years of CRE experience, and you can tack another 10 years of pure industry experience prior to being an educator and all that stuff. And I'm wondering what I'm going to do with it. I've never written a lot of stuff and like that. But you know, I'm not sure who reads that after a while. As I hear new things, I'm hearing repeats of things that have happened in years past and gone, and so on and so forth. So I'm just delighted to be able to do this morning. So let me get busy here. As Ruth said, we've got three major topics, about 25 minutes or so of what I call historic CRE items, a second 25-minute segment of what I call conference highlights, well, let's see, that's all right. Let me back up. History guy CRE about 25 minutes, then lessons learned along the way. So that's the second one. Then the third is open to questions. So we should have about 20, 25 minutes of each segment there. And I'm looking forward to the last segment because that will allow you to ask me just about anything you want to, and I'll decide if I want to answer it. I'm just kidding. So, okay, well, by the way, somewhere in the military they said, when you're doing these kind of things, you tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. See, so I've told you what I'm going to tell you, now I'm going to tell you when it's over, so, all right, let's get busy.
And I'll keep us on time.
Yes. It's not quite the same as the CHE approach, but it's okay. So first of all, with respect to History Guy CRE, I've got three subcategories. One is what I call my initial introduction and personal historical reflections. And so I would start by pointing out that I was recruited from industry to start the hospitality program at Wiley College in Marshall, Texas back in 1973. I was recruited actually by the firm of Laventhal and Horwath. Anybody remember them?
Yes.
Okay, all right. They were the auditors for Wiley College, and they said to Wiley one day, you don't need a better audit, you need some new programs. And here's hospitality manager, you might want to consider starting that up. So, they found me, interviewed me, and so on and so forth, and they actually got me connected with Wiley College. Now that was very significant because Jerry Lattin, who was the founding dean at FIU, his son, Tom Lattin, was a principal there with Laventhal and Horwath in Dallas, Texas. And so the final person that approved my selection was, in fact, his dad, Jerry Lattin, from FIU. So I went to this country club in Dallas and interviewed with Dr. Lattin. He put his stamp of approval on me, and here we are. But he didn't just put his stamp of approval on me, he was my mentor, and I'll say something about that later on. So he told me that there was this organization called CRE, and you have, not I-CRE then, just CRE. You need to connect with that because that's where all of the people are who are serious about hospitality education. And so if you get involved with CRE, you'll have lots of opportunities. Maybe one day you'll be president of CRE, and like that. So I got involved, and sure enough, that's exactly what has happened. The flow of my career and my life has been pretty much centered around CRE. The resources from the experts, the conferences, the ability to do presentations, and so on and so forth. And CRE has become pretty much family, pretty much family. I have made it my point to be at all of the new member orientations for the last however many years it is. And so there are lots of folks say, oh yeah, I remember meeting you when I came in. And so that's been a deliberate thing to connect with fellow members and pass on what I have gained from the organization. CRE has offered professional development opportunities. I have been on the board of CRE in several capacities, secretary, treasurer, representative from the Florida chapter, the international representative, and a couple of others over the years. And I'm still involved now, most recently actively with the 75th anniversary committee, which is we're still celebrating. You know, this is fantastic. Okay, but I was able to provide a lot of background photographs and old programs and stuff like that, which is in the archives now. Where are we?
So Dr. Boger, I'm not sure if you know, but he's a Howard Meek Award winner. And talking about traditions, one of the traditions he brought when he came on is, if you remember, he lines everybody up. So as the new Howard Meek Award winner comes across the stage, the former Meek winners line up to greet that person and kind of bring them into the fold as Meek Award winners. And that, I just gave us goosebumps. Like that's him. He's about tradition and about making sure everyone feels inclusive, even as an award winner. So
absolutely.
He's not going to say that about himself. I can.
Thank you. So let me move on now to conference highlights. My first conference was I joined CRE in 1973. Yeah, okay. I was very young. However, I was not able to attend the conference until '78, various and sundry finances, et cetera, 78. But I've not missed a conference since '78, and I don't intend to miss one until maybe 28 or 29. I want to do the big 5-0. Then we'll see what happens after that. I may roll in my Mercedes-Benz wheelchair, flash my Louis Vuitton cane, but up until then I should be there. But conference highlights. So I've obviously got a lot of them. The one that comes to mind most often is really at the top of the list as far as I'm concerned, is the 1993 conference in Orlando. And I was actually the conference co-chair for that, so I mentioned not because of that, but because it really was a great conference. It actually was the last conference totally put on by the local chapter. So the Florida CRE put it on. Believe it or not, at one time, the chapters competed to actually put on the national conference. You know, we had to do presentations and that sort of thing. And, so Florida CRE had it in '93. And it was the last conference. We were determined to make it the last conference, to make it not the first conference that went over $100 per night in room charges, okay? So we're like $99.95, something like that. But we were determined we were not gonna break the $100 barrier, and we made that happen at Stouffer's, which is now, I think, Wyndham SeaWorld or something like that in Orlando. At that conference, probably the highlight of the theme was Experience the Magic, and for every general session, we had a magician on stage doing something. The magician was one of us. Some of you might know him. He's Bill Quain, who was a faculty member at Central Florida at the time, and he's still somewhere. I saw him the other day on a podcast. He's legally blind, see a little bit, but he's legally blind, but he does magic. So to open every general session, we had him do something. That was really cool. I still remember that. We also had a golf tournament. It was supposed to be the first annual. It was the last annual. I tell you. But we did have it. And maybe that will come back at some point. But the most significant thing, was anybody at that conference other than me? Okay, Reg, okay. Then you will remember the Disney people, we weren't at Disney, but we went to Disney 2 or 3 times. I don't remember if it was the opening reception or what it was, but they had an event with maybe 25 of the different Disney departments that were available for our students and for careers. At each one of those tables or booths or whatever, that big room, they had about 3 times the size of this, there was an official Disney character at every single one. So everybody you can think of, anybody you can think of, Beauty and the Beast, Ariel, Mickey, Minnie, Pluto, they were all there. Can you see that in your mind there? Yeah. That was amazing. It made an impression. Of course, the cameras, and then we didn't have cell phones then, so people had real cameras, okay? But the photographs, they were just crazy, and that made such an impression. I mean, and I can still see that today. But that conference was really, in my mind, number one in terms of what I remember. The next two on here, anyway, all have to do with booze. I don't quite
Stop recording,
understand it,
Tony. Stop recording.
But last night, when I was talking with, let's see there, I mentioned the San Michelle Winery in Washington, Seattle. That was very memorable because we went to the winery itself, we toured the winery, and then there was a huge reception with about, at least 50 stations with all kinds of wonderful goodies and a different wine. So it was an amazing event. Everybody had a great time. Similar to that, in 1980, I believe, yeah, 1980. And you can fact check me on these dates because I might be off by a year or so. But we were in Detroit in 1980, and then we went across the bridge to the Canadian Club Distillery, where we toured that as well. And I remember so well, they had just introduced George Killian's Irish Red. You know that one? George Killian's Irish Red. My wife likes that. George Killian's Irish Red. And they just started making it, and they said to us, drink up, folk. I guarantee you we can make it as faster than you can drink it. That's what he said, and crew members stepped up and met the challenge. Okay. I guess I should be talking about academic though, but these are things I remember, and they make Cree meaningful and, you know, facilitate the networking and all that other good stuff. In 1985, I believe it was, the Atlanta Marriott Peachtree opened. That's the one with the atrium. I think you've all been there now. Then the atrium hotels were just coming into being, and Cree was one of the first groups to be in there. They just opened maybe a month or so. And so that gave our educators an opportunity to experience this brand new, amazing product and be able to tell our students, guess where I was this summer? I was, you know. So we were able to give firsthand experience. And that was supposed to be, in fact, is supposed to be a part of what Cree is all about. I remember my first Cree board meeting, which was probably 1981, I think, midwinter meeting with Jack Miller in St. Louis in the snow, okay? And in that meeting, the Cree group decided that we would not have meetings at schools, cheaper dorms, so on and so forth. But the idea was that we should be able to have our meetings in an environment that we teach about. As educators, we don't get a chance to spend all that much time, so at least once a year, we were supposed to be in a real live hospitality environment, and we've been able to keep that going on. And so the Atlanta Marriott Peachtree, we opened that, and they also provided us with a videotape, VHS, I can't find it anymore, but it was really neat because each of their executives stepped out and said, hi, I'm Mike Smith, the housekeeping manager. This is my domain, this is what I do. Oh, hi, I'm the accountant. So each of those stepped out on that videotape, and so we used that extensively in our intro classes as we were presenting it. So that was good stuff. And my first one was Atlantic City, 1978. At that time, Resorts International had just gone into Atlantic City and was kind of responsible for its revival with the gaming and so on and so forth. So these are all historic benchmarks that were provided to me and fellow hospitality educators by being active with Cree. Very memorable conferences. Of course, we had the papers and the general sessions and all those things too, but these are some things that humanized it and made it more than just a hardcore academic exercise. Cree too was historically positioned as a family affair, designed for you to bring your families. When I was in the Bahamas, Cree then had a regional rotation, and we in the Bahamas were never able to compete effectively for Cree because we were always in the same region as Disney, okay, in Orlando. And so you know, families had the choice of going to Disney, which is really family friendly, and hopping on the plane and coming to the Bahamas, which is all kind of family friendly, it's also family friendly, but not like Disney. So we were never able to bring the conference offshore to the Bahamas. So that caught me, I'm in good shape here, okay. So those are some conference highlights. Let me say too, that when you retire from the University of Maryland system, they don't give you a gold watch, so keep that in mind in case you don't get a gold watch, but you get to keep your email. So my email is still epboger@umes.edu. And so if any of the thoughts or ideas that come up here today, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than delighted to interact on any and all of these ideas, anything else that might come up. The third item under the historic CRE thing are memorable people. Just want to call some names. These are all people who have gone on to that great resort in the sky. I just want to call their names today. Jerry Latin, the first dean of FIU, was my mentor, the person that sort of hired me for hospitality education. And not only that, he invited me to come to FIU during the summer. Well, I was hired in December of '73. I would not see the first students until the fall semester of '74. So I had 9 months to develop myself into a hospitality educator, and not an industry person who had managed hotels and played with restaurants and stuff like that. So I went to FIU in the summer of 1974. I met with all the professors there, stole all of the curriculum and outlines and that sort of thing. He arranged an executive internship for me, which involved the Doral Country Club and the Doral on the beach. There were two at the time, and they had a yacht. So Doral had was a triple threat back then. That was before it was purchased by you know who. It's a whole different deal now, but it was privately owned back then. Also, Burger King, because I did a faculty internship at Burger King headquarters, and get this, Eastern Airlines. I don't know if nobody's probably old enough to remember the commercial on the radio that say, Eastern Airlines now ready for departure. that's radio. Eastern Airlines now ready for departure. And you know, then they talk about the fares and stuff like that. But so I had those three faculty internships that summer to give me up close and personal experience with elements of the industry that I was not particularly familiar with from an insider professional standpoint. My background had been in the management of upscale luxury residential apartments in the Dallas, Texas area. These were cool places, I'll tell you about those some other time. But I had no direct resort experience or you know, fast food or quick service behind the scenes, much less airlines behind the scenes. So that was great because I had 9 months to get myself together. Jerry Latin, my original mentor. He also, being the first dean at FIU, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but FIU then was called Cornell South, because all the professors who started FIU were people from Cornell. Jerry Latin was associate dean there. They hired him to come down and start FIU, and he brought Rocco Angelo and Tony Marshall, got M.L. Vento and some other folk down with him. So people would call it, you know, Cornell South at the time. But that's, I don't know if they liked that, but that was what it was out there. So also want to call him Mike Olson, who's also, well, all these have moved on. But he was president in 1980, and he's the person that got me involved at the leadership level of CRE. He was elected as president from the position of being secretary, and at that time he had, I think it might have been a 2-year term or something. So he had some unexpired time there, and he got the board to appoint me as secretary at that time. Now, how'd that happen? Well, someone yesterday, who was it? Jennifer, yeah, mentioned the idea of volunteering, volunteering for everything, the roles. Volunteering. I volunteered to start the Cree chapter in the Bahamas. So this was 1978, yeah. I got the educators together in Nassau, Bahamas, and we started a chapter there. I've got the charter still in my house there. I found it the other day, the official document. And based upon that, the Cree leadership knew of me. And so in the revolving restaurant atop the Western Detroit over cocktails, there was kind of an informal board meeting, and I was sitting around there, and they said, hey, come over and join us. And said, you know, we're really pleased with what you're doing there in the Bahamas and everything, and have you considered moving to a leadership position? I said, well, I'm here, you know, whatever. And so they asked me to step in as secretary, and so that's how I got involved with the board. I then ran for secretary once, I believe, or maybe twice, and I won. I ran for treasurer once or twice, and I won that. I ran for president once, and I didn't get through on that, but I guess it was not my time, I guess, or whatever the case might be. So that didn't work out, but that's fine, no problem. Mike Olson, again, is a person that got me involved there. But Mike Olson's importance to the industry is really that, many things really, but number one in my mind is establishing the PhD program at Virginia Tech. Are there any Virginia Tech PhDs here today? There you go, got one back down there. Okay. At the time, I believe Cornell had a program. I'm almost sure Oklahoma State had one, and there might have been a couple other places with PhDs in hospitality, but not a lot. Cornell turned out maybe 5 or 6 people a year, you know, really just a handful. So Mike also said, you know, we need an institution that is turning out people specifically to teach in the hospitality industry. So he did what he had to establish that program. Now, guess what? At that time, a lot of the department chairs and like that were people with master's degrees. A lot didn't have PhDs or doctorates at that time. And so some of them said, oh, this is great. Mike is setting this up. So we'll go to Mike and we'll get this doctorate and knock it right out and so on and so forth. Well, guess what? Mike Olson said, okay, the closer you are to me, the more difficult it's going to be for you to complete this degree. Because he didn't want people saying he's handing out degrees. And people like Mel Barrington, Joe West, Tom Van Dyke, I don't know if you know those are some of the people who were close friends with him and colleagues, and he made their life really rigorous, I guess. But they, you know, a couple of them were at the University of South Carolina with him. They cursed him every day. So, oh my God, you know, and they you know, they understood what was going on. But for sure, they earned their doctorate degrees, and it was just one of those things that I kind of think about when I think about leadership and that sort of thing, and quality and integrity, so on and so forth. He took it to the other extreme, and they're all doing very well today. So that's Michael. So Steve Fletcher was also a board president. Our leadership award is named after him. He was the director, chair, dean, etc., UMass Amherst during that time. And one of the things they did was to host 3, I think, every other year sessions of something called the World Tourism Congress. And they actually developed 2 textbooks out of those meetings. So that helped to move hospitality to a higher level in the society. And also those 2 publications were very useful. So Steve Fletcher, strong leader, very influential. He also, with his faculty, established an exchange program with my school. I was at the University of the West Indies in Nassau, Bahamas, and they brought students down for a week of experience in the Bahamas there. So yeah, they had fun and swam and like that, but they also got to experience the Bahamas a tourism establishment. And I was mentioning to a friend the other night, the Bahamas is really strong, as you can imagine, in the incentive market. And so they got to see up close and personal what kind of experiences people could have if they were the $1 million salesman for the Ford, dealers, whatever the case might be. So that's Steve Fletcher. Tony Marshall. Tony Marshall is another name that I must call Mr. Edutainment. Mr. Edutainment. He could fill a room just by knowing that Tony Marshall was going to speak. You had to be there. The man was basically a lawyer by training, and I never saw him in the courtroom, but I can imagine how he would have been, because he was extremely entertaining, very colorful, master storyteller, and whatever the subject was, you hung on to every word. So he really set the standard for edutainment. Plus, he presided over the movement of the Educational Institute of the American Hotel and Lodging Association from their headquarters at Lansing on Michigan State's campus down to Orlando. He presided over that movement. That was significant for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons was that we were moving into the digital age, and you couldn't find the kinds of people you needed in the East Lansing area to do the kind of digital media things that were coming along. That was part of the reason. You could find them, but they were, off the chart expensive. Whereas in the Orlando area, they're all over the place, because that's kind of what they do. So that was one of the reasons for doing that. One other, I would say a reason, but kind of an interesting change, was that when HNLAEF was at Michigan State and they issued certificates, you'd have people saying, well, where did you do your training? Well, Michigan State. Oh, okay. That was done a lot because, Michigan State University. So you kind of got away from that when they went to Florida. You didn't have people around the world, really. You say, well, I have Michigan State. So that kind of got that out of the way a little bit. And then the final person I want to mention here in terms of memorable people is Jerry Vallon. Jerry Vallon, who was at a couple of places, but primarily the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and really played a major role in getting that institution established as the center of the academics of gaming. I did a paper at some point about the ranking of schools. There was all this 1 to 10, who's the best, so on and so forth. My paper had to do with the fact that we should throw that out the window and just look at the mission of that particular school. And I said, if you want to, be proficient in the whole gaming area, go there. Cornell, somebody asked the other night if Cornell was #1 or whatever, and I said, well, in my paper, I pointed out that Cornell had the best global network on the planet, in the universe, okay? And so if you want to be connected worldwide, go to Cornell. That was the case back then. Now today with social media and everything, quite possibly James Madison has as much of a footprint as Cornell had. But back in the day, if you wanted to be connected worldwide, then Cornell was a place where you learn just as much at any school in terms of the information, because it's all about what the student puts into it for the most part, not necessarily the institution, okay? But Cornell had that worldwide network, still does, and again, as I said, it's been mitigated by social media so others can make a major performance then. Major presence then, Jerry Vallon. Also, he wrote a classic textbook called Check In, Check Out. I don't know if you're still using that today, but just that title, when I first saw that years ago, I said, oh my God, I got to use this. This guy must be onto something. And so that became the classic textbook for a lot of years. We could do a whole session on classic textbooks and those classic textbook authors from, back in those times. Those are all of the memorable people that I have, and that completes the section on what I call the historic ICRE presentation. And so that moves me now on to lessons learned along the way, and yeah, I'm in reasonable shape here as far as time is concerned. So there are 3 subtopics I want to deal with here. And I guess if Ruth and I had talked earlier, I might have some visuals up there of some sort, but we worked this out in a manner that makes this very fresh. I'll put it that way. Not been on the shelf, okay?
Listen, the PowerPoint's coming to you.
Yeah, so you got the talking heads. But something came out the other day about the amount of time, Damien, I think, presented that, about the time people spend on visuals versus sound. So that being the case, none of these subtopics is more than 7 or 8 minutes. See, I got it all down here in red, you know, so if I don't do it that way, you know, who knows what will happen. Anyway, section 2, lessons learned along the way, 3 subcategories. One I call leadership by way of HMGT 101, that first course. The second one I call a faculty success profile, and then I'll share with you what I call some exam personalizations. Those are the 3 subtopics. So leadership via HMGT 101. I could spend probably the whole week on this, but I would say, in my experience, the thing that I would recommend to everybody, if you can possibly do it, you as leaders, as deans, as chairs, as whatever you're called in your school leadership-wise, you need to teach HMGT 101, that first class. I know the temptations to teach the seniors and the masters and the PhD students because, you know, they need the intellectual challenge or so, whatever the deal may be, but you really need to teach that 101 class. There's so many benefits of doing that that it's just amazing. Number one, the way that I present it, it's not just the introduction to the industry, but guess what? It's an introduction to how you do things. It's an introduction to how your program runs, okay? You're doing that up close and personal, 100 students, 30 students, doesn't matter what you have, but you're setting the tone there. And so it heads off a whole lot of stuff. So in the junior year, when that student comes in and says, well, Dr. Boger, I don't know how I missed it, but I didn't realize we had to take basic accounting before we took hospitality accounting, and I'm a junior now, and I don't know. Hey, I'm gonna say, hey, Fred, listen, remember the introductory class? I went old school and I gave you a piece of paper, you know, with the curriculum on there, and we went through every stage of it, and we made sure everyone understood that you had to take basic accounting, then hospitality accounting, then food and beverage cost control, and then financial management. We made it clear that this is a lot of numbers. Most programs don't have a 4-course sequence in the hospitality curriculum. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, I kind of forgot about that. So it heads off a lot of stuff. As you know, students are amazingly creative in explaining why they didn't do something that they were supposed to do. They know they were supposed to do it, but they got all kinds of creative excuses. So, and they end up on your desk as the dean. Well, my advisor told me to do this, and it goes against the catalog, but I did it because of my advisor. No. I personally, you know, so that heads a lot of that off. It gives you a chance to make a personal impact. One of the things I do in that class, it meets twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday, 8 o'clock in the morning, deliberately, because I want to see who's serious about getting up in the morning at 8 o'clock to come to class. I don't like to do it. you know, but for 30 years, when I've taught this course at 3 different universities, I've gotten up at 8 o'clock, and part of it is to see who's there, you know, bright and bushy-tailed, ready to go. There are students today who are always there 30 minutes before I get there. There are students that are always late. I don't lock my doors. Some faculty members lock their doors. I don't lock mine. And I tell them, I say, you know, we want to see if you take this seriously, okay? I said, you don't have to impress me. You see, and again, this is the chair speaking. You don't have to impress me. You have to impress your classmates, because they're the people that are going to make the journey with you for the next 25, 30, 40 years. 10 years from now, when your resume comes across Damien's desk, Damien's going to say, Ruth, yeah, I remember her. She was a pretty good student, but I don't know. In that intro class, she always came in 20 minutes late. And Dr. Boger looked over and said, "Hi, Ruth," you know, and that's it. So I deliberately, we can force students to do certain things. Actually, my advisory board got on me about this, because when they come to campus, I have them in a class, and it's that 8 o'clock class. And they saw, and even though I didn't really prep the students no more than to say, the advisory board is going to be here. You better be here or else. You know, I didn't do that. I said, the advisory board is going to be here. You know, they're important. Well, true to form, there were a couple of people that, you know, rolled in, in pajamas or whatever, 5-10 minutes late. And the advisory board were appalled at that at the end. I said, well, and I explained what I'm explaining now. I said, I could lock the door, I could threaten them, I could take points. There's a lot of ways. And my other faculty members, some of them did that. You dare not be late. But again, that's artificial. When you're in the real workforce, hey, you got to be there now. So anyway, but that's something you do in intro class. One other thing in that class, I take 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I was sharing this with somebody the other day here, 5 minutes to share a part of my journey. Why have I been excited about being a hospitality professional all these years? Just 5 minutes. And I always talk about things that you can't pay for, experiences that you've had that you can't pay for. And I explain to them that, celebrities I've met, great meals, fam tours, all kinds of stuff like that you guys are aware of that happen to us as hospitality educators and professionals. And I say, this might not be your journey, but when you're hammering away at that calculus class that you really don't need as far as I'm concerned, but the system says you gotta have it, then maybe one of these nuggets will keep you motivated through the night to get through. So that's something you can do too as a leader. You can, insert yourself there, give them something to be excited about and going forward. So I got a whole lot of things that I can talk to you about. One other thing too, as I said, the whole purpose one of the purposes of the introductory class is for you to get to know your classmates, because they're the people you're going to make the journey with. So the first 4 class periods, 2 weeks, I spend on nothing but icebreakers, making them get to know each other. One of the ones is first day of class, I said, okay, I want everybody to form a big semicircle around the room. The biggest class is like 50. When I left, it was around 15, COVID coming, whatever, I don't know. But I say, make a circle around the room based upon your zodiac sun sign, okay? And then when you do that, put yourselves in terms of the actual dates, okay? So they have to talk to each other. When were you born? So you get a whole thing there. And then you get them to talk a little bit, standing up. But I've got lots of those. You all can do that too. But icebreakers, 4 class periods to make sure, and they're all different, to make sure that they kind of get to know each other. And on exam number 1, I asked them something. I asked them something about a classmate, something maybe, name 3 classmates that are from Baltimore, or whatever the case might be. So those are the things you can do. Many others with respect to putting your stamp and establishing quality control for your program by teaching the introductory course. Okay, faculty success profile, this will be very quick. I've always believed from very early that there are 3 things that faculty must be involved with. One is CREED, number 1. Every person who is teaching hospitality, as far as I'm concerned, needs to be a CREED member, full stop. period. In addition to that, the other organization should be the professional association that reflects your specialty. Now that shouldn't be a problem. Fran, for example, came out of HSMA, Hospitality Sales Marketing Association. So would not be difficult for her to maintain contact with that organization. And then thirdly, if that organization has a student club, then you ought to be the advisor for that student club on campus. And so that way, and if you're a big school and there are 3 of you teaching marketing, then all 3 of you can be maybe advisors to that club. And then of course you can have within your department a president's circle. So all those students who are presidents of those students club, they have an organization that provides real good leadership for your school. Same with Fred too, that when our speakers come, we ask those presidents to write letters to the speakers rather than have individuals. We have those presidents write letters. That way there's a pretty good chance it's going to be a higher quality letter, and it also gives them a chance to, get themselves out, step forward as leaders, and so you have an opportunity to do some other things. Okay, so just those 3 things. Where have I been? I've sought funding for those activities. I was not successful getting it from the administration in my budget, except for the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I had money. Well, Cree then developed the premium thing where you get 3 members or something like that. And so we had a premium in Princess Anne and a premium at Shady Grove. And so we were able to fund every single faculty member in Cree. Also, we had funds for them to be a part of the professional associations. Now, unfortunately, I dreamed all my life to getting this money. I got it, and then I couldn't get any faculty participation except for Linda. Couldn't get any faculty participation. Interestingly enough, those people that I hired, Ruth, Linda, they all participated. The faculty that I inherited, just didn't do it. They hadn't been doing it, and they didn't see the reasons for doing it then. I'm sure you all have some of those same challenges. The first conference I had with those funds was at Crystal City, Virginia in 2006. Okay, that's commuting distance, that's closer than here from our campus. I had one person, Ruth hadn't joined me yet, Linda hadn't joined me yet. I had one person to come out for 1 day. So while this is my espoused philosophy and my profile for success, you can take the horse to the water, you can stick his head in there, by God, but you can't make him drink. So, whatever that's worth. Let's see where we're here. Facts and such. Now, the final thing here, I think we're in good shape. Yeah, we're in good shape. We're in good shape. Okay. Good shape? What's that?
CHE. In your success profile, we talked about CHE.
Oh, yes. Ruth reminded me that you also need to earn the CHE. The CHE. I funded that for every faculty member, and we did make that happen. So we're proud to say that we had 100% CHE qualified faculty. We was able to do that. And as Damien knows, we were able to bring 20 faculty members from 10 technical universities in Ghana, 2 from each, and put them through the CHE process just a few years ago. We're still working with that project to evolve what is essentially the 10 community colleges in Ghana, evolve them into the 4-year bachelor's degree granting institutions, as has happened with all of ours. Paul, where's Paul? Paul's gone? Okay, anyway, who's community college here? You've all got bachelor's programs now? Say yes? They say no. Okay, well, you're gonna get them, okay? Every community college in Florida, there are no community colleges in Florida anymore. They're all state colleges. When my wife worked there for 15 years, it was Daytona Beach Community College. Now it's Daytona Beach State College because they all offer at least one four-year degree. So, and that's happened across the country, has happened across the country. We're working with that in Ghana. So CHE is also part of the Faculty Success Profile, and we pay for it. Okay. Final item here, before we get to open questions, is what I call exam personalization. Exam personalization. And this has worked for me, might not work for you, it worked for me, and I've used it continuously. Number one, all of my exams are short answer. Okay, I have no real use for, I recognize the importance and the use and how rigorous and scientific objective exams can be. I know all that. I was a chief test control officer for Uncle Sam for a number of years, as I shared with Fran. So I know all that stuff and I believe in it. However, for me personally, in my classes, got to be short answers because students need to know how to write, and my goodness, it's even worse today. So that's number one. The second thing is that all of my exams are open book. They're open everything. They're open everything except talking to your classmate or texting your classmate. But I defy you to, well, they think that's great until they get one, okay? Particularly the open book. They have the open book, okay, fine, but I assure them, I say, listen, it's open book, but you're not gonna be able to, number one, find where it needs to be, because I'm not gonna say chapter one. You gotta find it, you gotta understand it. You will not have time to do that. Some of them don't believe it, and they try it. And then, you know what happens. But here's an example. And I lay this out because faculty members have talked to me about cheating. Oh, they're doing this. Oh, I have them video cameras, and oh, I sit them here and I give them different colored pieces of paper. I said, fine, if that's what you want to do, fine. I said, but I don't have a problem with that because of the way I give my exams, you really can't cheat. Here's an example. And mainly because I personalize each question. Now here's one. Demonstrate your understanding of the competitor analysis section of the marketing plan by utilizing, guess what? Your internship site as the baseline company. That's in marketing. So they all gotta, use their company, and they gotta talk about their company. You can't really copy on that. You gotta use your company. Here's one. This is one I think is, use your driver's license number as the baseline for presenting a mathematical example demonstrating your understanding of cost, volume, profit analysis. It don't matter what.
You are a god.
They gotta be all different. It doesn't matter what, so that's one. And I have fun, my wife will tell you, because she hears about these at night when I make them. She says, you got to be kidding. So here are a couple more. You were placed in 4 groups to analyze ethics in hospitality scenarios. This is in a class. And I say, use your group's case to identify and discuss the most applicable textbook category of resolution. So, in this case, it's confined to that group. But guess what? You gotta be in class. Hey, if you miss that class, you're out to lunch. You can't do anything with that. And secondly, it refers to something in the textbook that you should have read and understood before you could apply it, see? And my most elaborate questions involve something you saw in class, something you were supposed to read, something from the field trip, and I put them all together. And they gotta make it happen. So, cheating is pretty much impossible. Here's another one. Reference your hometown to illustrate your understanding of the tourism multiplier. Okay, so you gotta give me, you know, places and things and people and, you know, like that in your hometown. Let's see, I think I got one more here. Yeah. Compare and contrast. Compare and contrast a scholarly article presented by a classmate with yours. Yeah, so in the senior research class, they have to read and present scholarly articles, okay? And so this requires them to learn from their classmates. They have to listen. And they know, by golly, exam time, he's probably gonna ask us to, so they'll be familiar with at least one other presentation in addition to their own. And so those are just some of the creative ways that I personalize exam questions, short answer questions, to make sure that you really can't, you know, talk to you or text or, I don't know, the million ways, mirrors and stuff that people do to, you know, get the same answers. I mean, back in the day when I was in high school and they had memograph machines, you know, the teachers would do the memographs and they put them in the trash can. And then the janitors would get them out at night and share them with their family members, their nephew who was in the class, who shared with everybody else. You know, so you came from an exam and said, hey, here it is, we got it, you know. And I always was kind of troubled by that because I knew I was prepared. Another thing to an exam, students say, well, Dr. Boger, what's going to be on the exam? I said, well, they always say that, by the way, what's going to be on the exam? I'll say, well, I really don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, I believe it should be like fresh bread, you know? And so I'm going to make it up tonight or early in the morning before I come to class. I want it to be fresh, so I don't really know what's going to be on there. But I say my approach as a student, and it's true, is to be prepared for anything. And so I dare the instructor to ask me something that I don't know. I mean, really, I challenge him. Put something on this paper that I don't know, you know? And that was my approach to it. Now, I know everybody is not that enthusiastic about it, but I mean, it worked for me. And I say, hey, you know, you're not, life is not going to be what's on the paper. It's going to be the totality of everything you've been presented. So don't worry about what's going to be on it. Prepare for everything. And, you know, I don't know any other way to put it. I think that's all I got here, yeah, with respect to faculty success profiles, exam personalization. So very quickly, I've covered the historic IMCA part of it with some initial intro and personal historical reflections. I talked about some conference highlights. I noticed some memorable people along the way. And then lessons learned. I shared with you my thoughts on leadership opportunities available if you take the lead in presenting the one-on-one class. I shared with you a faculty success profile that I think will work for everybody, and also some final thoughts on exam personalization, which gives you more control of the entire process and keeps the students really on their toes. So that's all I have in terms of a formal presentation. The rest of the time, which I think we've got a few minutes left for what I call all access, you know, like you, the subscriber, you know, all access. And I invite any questions that you might have about anything I've said or should have said or whatever you want to hear about. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so now it's Ask Me Anything. I see a time check. Tony, Jeff, time? A couple minutes? Like 1, 2 questions?
Well, that's okay. We're 5 minutes over.
5 minutes over. Okay. Does anyone have a question? Dr. Forstall.
Did you know that Dr. Boger and his wife Carmel are featured in the Harriet Tubman tour?
Oh, yeah, on the Eastern Shore. It's,
Well, we're the poster children. I spent 6 weeks training tour guides for the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad Scenic Byway. Along the way, they were doing publicity and stuff, and I guess they needed to have some African American folk as tourists. We were the only people who were not from there, so they said, hey, you know, so we're on the website, you know, looking at the scenes and sites. So they didn't give us any money, you know, but I guess notoriety is worth something. So thank you. If you go on the website, you'll see us there, you know, being good tourists. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so Dr.
I know I'm standing between you and the box lunch and the highway. So again, thank you. Again, you have my email. Reach out. I'm here for you.
Dr. Boger, on behalf of the NENA Federation and your family, your NENA family, which is a certificate as well as a little
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We don't have to
It's a box
now,
lunch.
do we?
It's a box
It's a box lunch.
Okay, what you okay. Yes. I want you to
Okay, how do you want it sitting or standing?
I'm
Or?
not quite sure.
Let's put the box lunch down too.
No, that's
Yeah, birthday.
Okay. Oh.
Ernie is more than a box lunch. It just looked like a box lunch.
Oh, okay. All right.
Ooh.
Is it the key to the Ferrari?
The Mercedes.
Another Mercedes.
It's for your visual.
I've got the whole world right here in my hands.
Literally.
I've got the whole world in my hands. See?
Oh, wide world.
Or me, basketball.
Is it the whole wide world? Oh, yeah.
And I see Daytona Beach, I see Ghana, and I see Jamaica, so it's all here.
Yeah.
You know, this is the real deal.
It's driven by the sun.
Yeah, okay.
It's driven by the sunshine.
Stop there. Okay. Thank you. Safe travel, everybody. Bon voyage, Kelly Loyalty, and sayonara.